I thought maybe there'd be 20 or 30 people here, and it's like fantastic, this audience. Good. Actually, it was Scotch, but yeah. Okay, this first poem I read in the newspaper in England a few months ago that scientists were trying to kind of develop a genetically modified onion whereby they'll cut the genes out that make you weep when you chop them, which seems like such a sad thing to me. I mean, one of the pleasures about chopping onions is that you're weeping while you're making lunch. It's fantastic. Onions. It's enough to bring tears to your eyes, this talk of a modified onion, tamed and impotent, shorn of its magic properties, the power to make you weep over chutney, to blub like a baby while making salsa. You've sharpened your knives and chopped in goggles, you've vinegared the board, you've soaked the bulbs, but nothing has helped. Sacred symbol of the universe, cure for baldness, dog bites and warts, baldness. Steroid for Roman Olympians, enemy to aphid and carrot fly, polish for copper and glass. White spear, Tokyo long, Beltsville bunching, Walla Walla, Rosa Lunga differenza, red globe, Ebenezer, drying in sheds all winter, staple of every allotment gardener. They have graced the chopping boards of ancient Egypt, Greece and Mesopotamia, whose cooks have sobbed in their sculleries, cursing the spirits who live in the kitchen ceiling. They wept on the Mayflower, taking them overseas, and the Queen of Heart demanded the head of the one who brought turnips instead. So slice it with reverence, cut the green flesh and watch it bleed. Feel the burn as you take it apart. This papery ordnance full of tear gas and milky sap. Lay down your knife and rock on your heels like a god full of human suffering. Think of your supper and weep. I was just thinking about the book that Dean was talking about, the baldness cure. Well, actually, yeah, onion juice. That's obviously an old remedy. I was in a pub in England, listening to a tale about this woman was just these bees. Thousands and thousands of bees just flew through the air and kind of went down the chimney and kind of made a hive of the house. And apparently it kind of happens quite frequently when a new queen is born. They migrate and they go and find somewhere else to kind of set up home. This frightening concept that, you know, you're living in the middle of a bee hive. They swarm over gardens. A dark tornado, a maelstrom of sooty particles searching for home, the new queen somewhere in its swirling center, then down the chimney. A plume of smoke in reverse, like coals in the hearth, sucking their dark heart back to the source. They mass beneath floorboards, building combs, making honey inside the walls. You can hear the drone, the dull buzz of insect life at dawn. When you touch a wall, it hums like a drum. You can feel the tingle, the faraway, dull vibration in the soles of your feet as you walk barefoot from room to room. It gathers all summer, toffee and clover pollen filling the air until the sweet scent of honey drives you out of the house. Sometimes water is okay. Right, this poem is about golf. Now, I don't play golf. And I was talking to some lady in the audience earlier about golf and how she said it was like as exciting as watching grass grow, and I kind of agreed with her on that one. And it's not one of those sports, and I like sport, but it's not one of those sports that kind of get me going in a big way. But when you guys went up to the moon, you know, the astronauts, what did they take? They took their golf clubs. And like during the Apollo 14 moon landings, they actually kind of knocked some balls about, which was amazing. And why not, indeed. This is also a poem about writing. I was talking to an English author at a festival once, and we were talking about golf. I wasn't, but some other people were talking about golf. And this guy, in his pompous manner, said, golf is no fit subject for a poem. And I thought, well, what a stupid thing that is. You know, anything is a fit subject for a poem. A bag of plumber's wrenches is a fit subject for a poem. Anything is a fit subject for a poem. So I thought I'd write this in response to that rather strange concept. And it's set on the moon. It's called A Poem About Golf, Dave. It's great to be out before earthrise, knocking the balls about. It keeps me sane, keeps my feet on the ground, as they say. When you hit a ball up here, it goes for miles. You can see it glow bright as a bullet over the craters, an inspiration, the drive of a lifetime. Dave, on the other hand, sits in the capsule, brooding, looking through telescopes, shaking his head. It's not a theme park, he'll say. It's a sacred place. Dave's a poet. Write a poem about golf, Dave, I tell him. You might see something you never imagined. But golf is no fit subject for a poem. I watch the earth rise every day like a glass marble, silent and stupid. I gaze for hours, watching the brown smudges of Africa, China, Australia. At night, in the metal hum of the landing craft, I dream of the green fairways of Ballyliffin, the palm trees of Valderrama, the salty rain of St Andrews, the whole moon's surface covered in grass. I'll be home soon, the weight of gravity dulling my dreams. A metaphor, Dave. The arc of the golf ball falling short time after time. The missed sitters, the cuts, the tops and slices. And anyway, at the end of the day, you need the practice wherever you are. Somebody mentioned the erotic earlier. I used to live. I live in a house, 2 streets where the backs of the houses actually kind of back onto each other. So your back room is facing somebody else's back room over gardens. And there was one summer where kind of every morning at about 5 o'clock, the woman over the road was having sex with her boyfriend, and like it just woke you up every morning. It was like an alarm call, you know, it was like regular. And you know that really beautiful still time, dawn, pre-dawn or just after dawn, where it's so peaceful and you can hear everything. This one's called Threesome. In the hour before dawn, when the smallest sounds are amplified by the stillness, before the first jumbos have skinned the rooftops, Mandy wakes me again with her moans from over the way, my early morning call for dawn, when the gardens are pungent, the sycamores flushed with an unreal green. As I stand by the window, I can see inside her room the parquet floor, the legs of her bed, her curtains blowing like veils. In the house next door, Maureen is drinking tea in her dressing gown. She wanders the garden smelling the roses. when she sees me standing there, naked in morning glory, she waves and slips the robe from her shoulders and stands like a wrinkled Venus, risen from her flowery gown, her old brown body knotted and faintly erotic at such an hour. She starts to dance to this early music, to the grace notes of lovers embracing themselves at dawn. I stand there and watch, tumescent and spellbound, one eye on her and one on the bedroom where Mandy is raising the roof with her cries, an incantation to love, and Maureen is stroking a huge imaginary phallus, entreating me to join this strange suburban rite. So I move to the rhythm and blues of my strange neighbours, and Mandy and I climax like lovers do together, and I come from the first floor window into the herb garden, and Maureen stands there laughing and clapping her hands in the sunshine. Okay. This poem, this is a kind of love poem, but it's also a science poem. When I wrote this book, I was reading a lot of science, not kind of hardcore science, but what we call in England popular science. And I don't know if it's as, in the US whether the bookshops are full of these books, but I got to reading stuff and it was amazing. This particular poem is called Half-Life, and it's about subatomic particles that kind of exist for such brief moments of time. You actually wonder what the purpose is for them existing at all. They don't exist naturally. They just exist in these kind of huge particle colliders where they send an atom from 10 miles this way and they go together and I just thought I'd like to try and write a love poem where you're trying to give your lover something that doesn't last for long enough for them even to kind of receive it. It's called Half-Life. And another thing is all these particles, these names, man, these are fantastic. They're like racehorses. You'd think that kind of scientists would be boring and they'd call particles particle A or particle X and particle B, but no, they give them these wonderful, strange names, and they've all got different kind of spin speeds, so they give them kind of qualities rather than, it's weird, man. Anyway, Half-Life. I give you a charmed, non-strange meson. It disappears in the blink of an eye. You give me a neutron. It falls to pieces in minutes. I offer a pion. It decays in less than a nanosecond. I ask for an axion, a Zeno, a Higgs boson. You say they are still theories. They only exist in the mind. You ask for a quark. I want to know what flavor you'd like, truth or beauty. I hand you a muon, a kaon. They vanish without trace. You give me a microscopic black hole. It evaporates before I can touch it. You hold out your hands, but what can I give you when nothing will last? I kiss your lips, and the heat of your mouth lingers a moment, then disappears like everything else. Food's been something of a kind of recurring theme tonight. This one's about a cauliflower. Cut the crown from its stem and settle it on the chopping board like a hairdresser settles a head. Take out the knife and cut through the crown, a brain laid open, two halves on the breadboard, empty of thought, a memory of rain and root, the bright glance of a garden fork, perhaps, and a star in the dark sky. Ugly they might be, cabbages of sorts. I carry them home like trophies in a Sainsbury's bag. The head of Alfredo Garcia, John the Baptist, Marie Antoinette, dead weights in a basket. Or look at it this way, a storm cloud, a cumulonimbus of buttery florets billowing up off the kitchen table. What else can we do with this creamy wart, this rough and bulbous monster, its head full of dreams? Cook it, I guess, in a curry with spinach and mustard, bake in a strong cheese sauce, or fry to a crisp tempura, seasoned with sesame seed and a splash of oil. Or how about ice cream? Blend it with sugar, eggs, and a jug of creme fraiche, then serve on a medley of autumn fruits. It will still seduce with its deep and savoury edge, that hint of horseradish under its breath. So you know what I cooked tonight? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to read another new poem, another kind of science-based poem. It's about genetics, I guess. And I know this is a contentious issue for some people in some parts of this country, but for me, the idea of genetics is just absolutely astonishing. And I just think how far we've come and from what. It's called Ancestors. And there's a quote from Richard Dawkins at the front, which says, "We are all without a single exception. We all, without a single exception, inherit all our genes from an unbroken line of successful ancestors." Last night, when I reached for you in the dark night, that heat inside me, I wondered if my mind was my own. Is it me who needs you, or are my genes on fire for some distant place? As we took our pleasure, I could hear them singing choir to choir in the endless dark. I think of our ancestors, how far we have come, out of the water and into the trees, how they spread through the land like shadows onto the plains and beyond, throughout all the ice ages and the shifting of continents. They dodged clubs, arrows, swords, and slipped untouched through all the plagues that wasted millions, poverty, hunger. Nothing could touch them, bullets and tanks, doodle bugs falling on London, cars cruising the Strand. Not one of them failed to find a mate. So we sit in the sun this afternoon with coffee and newspapers, a childless couple talking politics and science. To think it all stops here, journey's end for these particular passengers. To have come so far and found a blank. If I were the sentimental type, I'd take you now in the alley behind this cafe and do the honourable thing. I'd open the floodgates and let them go, screaming and singing into the future. Right, 2 poems to go. Last, this one, we're not allowed to drink on campus, right? We're not allowed to smoke on campus. Is there anything else we can't do on campus?
We don't dare tell you.
Okay. And recently, you know, I know in New York, maybe here too, no, not in here, but I know in some bars now they stopped smoking in public places, which is fine, but not in bars. I mean, in England, like, it's seen as a bit kind of antisocial to stop smoking in bars. It's kind of the complete inverse. It's kind of a strange thing. It's not quite happened yet, but our great leader, Tony Blair, you might have heard of the guy, is trying to bring in a law to stop people enjoying themselves. So anyway, this is just a poem about smoking. I'm not a smoker now. I used to be, and I used to love it. Lighting up time. And there's a quote here from Vincent van Gogh in one of his letters to his brother. Theo, I strongly advise you to smoke a pipe. It is a good remedy for the blues. That's quite right. Let's go to that trendy no-smoking bar in Soho and smoke our way through cocktails and pink gins, break open those huge cigars, the Churchills and Bellicosos, blow smoke rings over the heads of the drinkers, tut-tutting, fanning their faces. We'll light up our pipes and sit with our feet on the tables in thoughtful, reflective mood, puff on a meerschaum, a clay or a calabash. Savour the strongest tobaccos, Latica, Turkish, Perique. We'll knock the dottles out on our heels, and when we're done, we'll fill up the chillum and bong, and maybe the hubbly-bubbly we bought in Algiers, and when we finally clear the bar, we'll open the windows and let in some air. Okay. Last poem. I'm a terrible flyer. I hate flying. Coming here was an absolute nightmare, you know, and I'm glad I'm here, but I wish I'd never bothered in the first place because the 10 hours were just hellish. And I've got to go back too, so I feel like one of those, you remember in the old days, the Russian gymnasts would come to the US and then they'd suddenly disappear somewhere and no one ever see them again. I think I'm going to do something like that, to just disappear out into the Midwest so that I don't have to kind of go back home on an aeroplane. This is, it's called the Mile High Club, and I don't know if there are any kind of members here. But they're all blokes anyway, so it doesn't matter. The Mile High Club, it's just about the fear of flying, the fear of sex, and the fear of death. Who can think of sex at a time like this? In a toilet, a mile up in the troposphere. You won't find that in the Kama Sutra. I sit in this cheap seat and rub my clammy palms all the way from Gatwick to JFK, 30,000 feet above the grey Atlantic. Every bump and shudder sends my pulse racing. The turbulence, the sudden pockets of air that leave your stomach 100 feet above you in the clouds. The plane shaking like an old bus on a dirt road. I close my eyes and pray to a God who doesn't exist. Anything can happen up here. I've read the stories. The pilot's 10-year-old flying the plane, a bomb in a suitcase, a spark in the fuel tank, a suicidal steward with a crippled daughter dying at home, a man with a gun whose wife has left him. The two crowded skies we fly through. A miracle we've got this far, which, after 4 hours, is still 30 degrees west of nowhere. Nothing between us and the drink and the 7 miles below that. Forget about joining the Mile High Club. I prefer it with my back on a mattress, a foot above the solid earth, knowing if I fell, I'd only bruise an elbow or burn my arse on the carpet, when the only turbulence is the one we make of the mattress, our duvet billowing like storm cloud as we ride the bed. I bite my nails and count the minutes. I watch a whole movie without understanding. I walk the aisles like a lunatic pacing his patch of earth. The only thing that stops me going nuts is this unworldly beauty beyond the window, the light on the clouds, the pristine blue of the sky. But what a way to go, you say. The sudden cold as the plane breaks up. Imagine us falling towards the featureless, cold sea, your hands on my breasts, my legs wrapped around you. We'd fuck the whole way down, entwined like sycamore keys, our gasps lost in the rush of air, in the vast emptiness, in the perfect sky, while all around us buckled in seats, the dull and unimaginative fall without sound. We'd hit the sea at 100 miles an hour in mid-climax, the water hard as concrete, our bodies like two glass vases dropped on the floor, shattered without boundaries now, our fibres drifting on the wave tops, food for cod and haddock, for seabirds crossing the pond, hammerheads sniffing the current, coming from miles for the big finish. You don't have sex like that every day. We circle in our stack above the airport. Thank God for that, I think. You must have lost your mind. And anyway, what could feel as good as this? Touching down with a jolt on terra firma, the weight of gravity like an arm around your shoulder. That feeling that you've got away with it, that you've got away with your life. Thank you.